Hi everyone, it's April with Hair 101, and today we are going to do a pretty sombre on this cute girl, and we're going to go from like a level 3 really dark and do some really pretty highlighting. And then I think I'm going to go back in through and do a little bit of an Akai technique. So I will give you that formula later. For now, we just decided to do a 3NW in the color gels right here for the dark on the top, and then the 10 volume obviously because we're just depositing. And then for the lightener, I am so excited to get to use this. This is brand new. It doesn't even have packaging yet. So this is a freehand lightener. It's made to process at room temperature in open air, and it's clay-based. I'm very excited to try it. And this will be coming out soon, and I'm just gonna let you guys know what I think of it. I have mixed it up once, and I put a little bit on my ends the other day, just to kind of see the texture and stuff, and it was really cool. So I'm going to show you guys how to mix it up. It's a little bit different texture than all their other bleaches. It kind of looks like powdered sugar or something. So the mixing ratio for this is 1 to 1.5. And then we're going to use 40 volume. So we're going to pour it in until we have 60 grams of lightener in there, so until it gets to 100. And I like using the scale for this because it's so hard to know with hand painting if you have the right consistency. Okay, I went a little bit over, but that's okay. 103, close enough. All right, and this is the first time I've used this little color whip contraption too. So let's see, I think you just put the arrows together and then on for 45 seconds, and it just mixes it up. And then you don't have to worry about getting the powder in your nose and breathing it in or anything. So I really like using this color whip when I'm doing balayage because it is nicer to have a little bit thicker consistency, but it's hard to get that smooth texture when you're doing it by hand. So I just mixed it up twice on the 45 second. And let's look at it and just see what it's doing. See, that's a lot. See how much runnier it gets just from mixing it a little bit more. So the key is just mix, mix, mix. And even when it's in the bowl, if you have your consistency start to get a little bit too thick to work with, give it a little whip with your brush and it will liquefy it back up again for you. And I'm also only mixing up one batch at a time because I want it to be fresh. If you mix all of your color at once, by the time you get to your last sections, it's kind of old and it's not as effective. So I'm going to just mix up this one batch and see how far we get with it. Today I'm going to be using a few different tools. I have my Redken color board and the blur brush. And I'm going to be using the blur brush anytime I don't always have to use it, but if there's a little bit too thick of product or something that needs to kind of just be blended in with the dark or the light, I can just go in with that and then clean it off on the towel. So I'll be using that, and then I have this skinnier brush. And then for the dark, I have this thicker brush. So we're gonna go ahead and part her hair. This is where she wears her hair, right here on this part. So I wanna make sure that I get plenty of both sides of her part in this top section. When you're hand painting, you don't wanna like wrap the hair up in a tight little knot just because obviously you want the hair to be really smooth. So I'm just gonna try to keep the clip there. Okay, so I'm gonna take just where the head starts to roll, this section, and just kind of clip it up into the mohawk section. So we're going to work on this nape area first. And we're going to split this into 2 sections. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections here. Okay, so first things first, make sure you wear gloves, especially when you're doing balayage because it can get kind of messy. So on this first section in the back, we're going to take about 1 inch of hair. And you'll know if it's enough. If you can see through it, you need to grab a little bit more. And when you're working on hand painting, you always want to make sure your section is at a 45-degree angle. And this helps so much with the lines because if you paint it really flat down, that's laying as flat as it goes and the lines can be a little bit more strong. If you're holding it at a 45-degree angle and then you let that down, it kind of just blends the lightener just a little bit more and the lines are a lot softer. So make sure you're working at a 45. So we're going to do this section by section, and I'm just going to go ahead and put the dark on first, top and bottom. all of zone 1 and just melt it down into a little bit of zone 2. Also, it's really important that you hold the hair right in the middle of the section. If I was holding it over here, you can see how this is a little bit saggy, or if I was holding it over here, this would be a little bit saggy. So 45-degree angle, and you're holding the tension right in the middle. So we're gonna get a little bit of this new lightener on the brush, and we're just gonna start laying it in. And you want it to be kind of like a thick blanket on the top of the hair. We're not trying to saturate it all the way through. We're just going on this mid-shaft and ends. And then we're gonna just reach up on the ends like a V shape and you can overlap it a little bit onto the dark. That's fine. And it's okay to have a little bit of the hair not saturated with the dark in the middle here because we want it to kind of melt from that really dark to the lighter. And then on the end, you can either use a board, which I'm gonna use here, and then you really wanna saturate in the ends and get that nice and saturated. And then if you wanna go back up in through here with your blur brush and just soften out any lines, you can do that. And every time I'm on the very bottom section and I have really long hair like this, I like to just lay a foil down and just kind of press it against the foil a little bit, just so it's not making a huge mess. You don't have to do that, but I like to. Especially like if her hair reaches down below this and she leans forward, she's gonna have it all over her clothes. So make sure you're constantly whipping your lightener so that it stays like light and fluffy. And I really like the consistency of this lightener. I think it's really nice. Okay, so that's how we worked to the underneath. You can see I left a couple pieces just out and did the dark down, and I even left one of the middles out. So there was 3 sections or 4 sections. 2 of them I did regular and 2 of them I took out brown pieces. 1 in the middle and 1 on the side on each side. So then up in the top, I'm gonna take this whole middle section here and just do all of the roots in the dark. And I'm not gonna pull it too far down. I'll be able to pull it down a little bit further in a certain spot, so I'm just concentrating on zone 1 right now. And we're gonna work triangles in this section where we kind of drop a triangle and we lighten a triangle. So I'll show you how to do that. We're just gonna kind of go through and make sure we're getting this dark all on section 1. So you saw that I took vertical sections just to kind of, you can see that it kind of is like uneven, like there's no direct exact line. It goes a little deeper in here. I wanted that. I wanted it to be really soft. So now we're gonna work in triangles. So we're gonna take this triangle here. We're gonna go from the top and just make a V, and we're gonna leave this triangle dark. And because we're leaving it dark, I'm going to take the dark and just, I'm not bringing it all the way to the ends because the whole entire effect of this haircut, the whole effect of this hair color is to have it going from dark to light. So the light on her ends are light enough. We're just gonna kind of feather it down. And if you want a little bit more light in the hair, you can take just like a little piece of it and hand paint. I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna hand paint a little piece. Just kind of like one little single piece. Just for a nice little highlight there, just because I can. So there's that. And then the next section is going to be the triangle we lighten. And you want it to be fat on the top and skinny on the bottom, so you have more working surface. So now that we have this angle, we're just gonna go from the bottom and point up to get our triangle. And we want it a couple inches wide. So this is gonna be the next section we're working on. So we're gonna bring the dark a little bit deeper into that triangle right in the middle and use the blur brush. Make sure it doesn't have any lightener on it. And just softly bring it down. And then we're gonna take our lightener and we're going to do the same thing we've done on the bottom, where we lay it in right on the top. We're not pushing it all the way through. We're just kind of sweeping it on to the top to make this like thick layer all the way down. And this is supposed to dry and kind of make like a skin on the top to protect it from the air And we're going to bring both sides up the V just a little bit. And then use the board to work it into the ends where we want a little bit more light to actually saturate through down there. So I'm going to show you the underneath of this. So if you can see spotting from the board, you can just go in there and lightly brush it up. Oh my gosh, yeah, there we go. So that's why you got to make sure your brushes or your board is clean. But you can see it's not all the way saturated. You can take your blur brush and blend that in a little bit if you want, or you can saturate through on the ends all the way if you want, because that will give you a little bit better effect on the lightning. So you can actually go in here and just feather up the back of this too. But you do want to be checking to make sure you don't have spots like that, and blend them in if you do. You see in here how it's a little bit too thick and not really blended? You just kind of take it and swipe it up just slightly, just to kind of blend in that line. Because if it looks harsh right now, it's going to look harsh when it processes. You see how much softer that is? That's what you want. So we have this dark piece and then this light triangle. We're going to take, you can take a slightly smaller dark triangle, and we're leaving that out again. And that's going to be dark, so I'm going to take a little bit of this darker color and just blend it down into this one again. Take the blur brush, make sure it doesn't have any lightener on it. Blend it down, softly blend it down, and then that piece is done too. And then you just keep moving on those triangles. The fat part's light, the skinny part's dark, and I will do the same thing I did over here and do one little light piece on the end. So I've done the right side of her hair, but I'm going to do the exact same thing on the left side, so I just thought I'd show you the one side. The first thing I do is take this section right along the face, and I'm going to just weave out like a little micro weave. And leave this out of these sections. And you can clip them off if you don't want to forget about them. I'm just going to incorporate it into this big section in the front. And then we're going to take a section, actually we're going to take all of this and put the dark on zone 1. And then I'm going to work it down a little bit lower as I go. But I definitely know I just want it all over in zone 1. So I'm just going to go and do that really quick. So I did the really big triangles back in here. What we're going to do on this side is do a lot smaller triangles, thinner, smaller triangles, but the same technique where we're going to drop the underneath triangle and leave the top one that's thicker with the balayage on it. And these triangles are really actually very necessary, because especially when you're going from someone so dark to light, if you were to balayage all of it, her ends would be so much lighter than her roots that it wouldn't be a sombre, it wouldn't look blended. And you would end up with just like black and white. So it's really important to have that depth that continues through. So make sure you're doing that. If she was blonde and just going lighter on the ends, it wouldn't really matter as much. You could kind of just paint everywhere. And I'm making sure that I don't smash this color up onto this top section, just lightly laying it. I'm going to direct it forward even so it doesn't get color from the other side. Okay, so on this first section though, I'm just going to do a normal dark V in the middle. And I want to keep the lightness around her face, of course. So I'm going to take this and put the lightener on it. And see, my lightener kind of got crummy looking, like a little bit sandy looking. And so if you just whip it, it's smooth again. So you don't need to add more developer, you just need to whip it. All right, so here we go. We're gonna lay in down towards the ends and then just go up here once we've gotten a little bit of that product off the brush and paint in our light pieces on the V's. And sometimes I add a little bit more lightener on the ends on the foil if I want it to stick, but you don't want to smush it. Just be really light with it. Okay, so that's section 1. So section 2, we're going to take about an inch. We're going to do inch triangles, inch by inch by inch. So we're going to do about 3 triangle blocks up here. So obviously we want the light to be around her face, so the first triangle I take is going to be this way. And we're going to do this one light. But I am still going to take a little bit of this dark and run it down the middle and just blend it in. And since these are a little bit smaller sections, they kind of go fast. You just start down here at the end. And it's better to start lower than higher and work up, because you can't really remove the lightener once you get it too high. I mean, you can wipe it, but it just doesn't. Start lower. That's my advice to you. So now that we have that section done light, this underneath triangle that we go this way, this is going to be a dark one. So you move pretty quick through these because you're leaving this out, and I'm going to just take some of the dark and blend it down, leaving some of her natural there to have a little bit of an effect from dark to light still. So that piece is done. Now we're going to grab another triangle to lighten. And this is a really cool lightener. If you do get a little bit on them, you can kind of just rub it off because it turns to dust pretty easy. Okay, so we're going to darken the middle and blend that down a little bit. And I'm just turning the brush sideways and just kind of laying the product in and just stroking it on. The other thing I really like about this lightener is it wipes off of the board really nice. It cleans up pretty good so that you don't have it a gloppy mess. You kind of get a dusty mess everywhere, but I'd rather have a dusty mess than a gloppy mess. And it even dries onto your gloves kind of dusty, so you're not putting this wet blob of lightener on their hair. And I love to keep a little bit more light around the face, so I didn't pull anything deeper than that in the dark. And I like to bring the light up a little bit higher around the face because it just looks pretty to have it kind of naturally flow back to darker, I think. That's just my personal preference, and I know a lot of you agree with me on that one. And I like that hollow section right there that's like between the dark and the light. That's going to be really pretty when she curls her hair. So this side is done, and now we're going to go from this back section. We're going to work back. When I get to the front, I'm going to weave out that front part and leave that like kind of just till the very end. We're going to paint those pieces back around her face. Okay, so I'm going to go through and once again put the darker color all over this middle section just on zone 1, and then we'll work it through the deeper parts. But now I'm going to go ahead and split it from right at the top of the head back, and I'm going to work that section back, and then I'm going to split this one in half, and I'm going to work these ones to the side. So more like the natural fall of the head. But this just keeps everything organized. So that's how I'm going to work this. 1/2 inch to inch sections, a little bit thicker if you want it more dramatic, a little bit thinner, or a little bit thinner if you want it more dramatic, a little bit thicker if you want it more subtle. Just depends. And the color gels are kind of fun to work with stuff like this because they're really easy to manipulate into the hair because they're so thin. They kind of just melt into the hair. So I like them. All right, here we go. We're going to just lay this in. Remember, starting a little bit lower is sometimes safer. And you can see the texture of this stuff. It is really creamy. It goes on so smooth. So I decided on this last piece just to take out the middle section completely and kind of just drop it out. I'm going to blend that down a little bit deeper, leave the ends just natural, and then work with the other 2 sides. Just so that it would break up that really thick amount of lightener we have right there. So this little zigzag section that I took out, I'm just going to take like 3 pieces from each section and pull them back, and you can even use a foil And I'm just gonna lay them on the foil and hand, or just paint them and just kind of feather it up. And this is just nice for when they have their hair pulled back in a ponytail, or just to get a little bit more lightness around the face. Just keeps it really soft. So same with the section on the front, just a few. You can even weave it out and just take them all at the same time if you want to be a little bit quicker. Okay, so it is processed for 50 minutes, and you can see that it has this like dry skin on the top, but underneath it's still like creamy. But it, like, you can see like down here where it's dry, it just kind of flakes off. But you can see how pretty that lightener is. I mean, her hair was really dark. So I think it's pretty good. Let's rinse it and see what it looks like. Another thing I've noticed is that there's this like powdery mess everywhere, so just be ready for that. I used the All Softs Shop Phase and the Shop Fix on her today, and I have a little video that I'll put out later on that explains how to use those. But for now, we're just gonna go ahead and blow dry her hair. Here's the results from just the freehand lightener. It's a really pretty blend. You can see how light we got from how dark. I am going to go through with the new Shades EQ 9P. It's like a 9 pearl, and tone this out, and it will take care of some of these orange undertones. And I'm also going to go through with a little bit of flash lift because, and this isn't really something I'm bashing on the lightener for, it's more just like product placement. I didn't know how aggressive to be with it because I'd never used the lightener before. And I did want a few extra pieces that were a little bit lighter around her face. But I really like this. Like the blend that we got, I think that's beautiful. But like hindsight, next time I would probably saturate a little bit more, or definitely take smaller sections with around the face on these two sides. Okay, so this is 2.5 ounces of the 9P mixed with 1/2 ounce of clear and the processing solution. I'm just going to use my color board and go through and quickly apply this. You don't have to saturate it on the roots because that's all really dark. You don't even need to worry about that. So protecting this from the air is going to help lift it a little bit faster. So I want to make sure that it gets all the way in the foil, and I'm just going to kind of work this up. This is flash lift with 40 volume. So it's not going to be a problem because it's not going to be on her hair for very long, but I'm just going to make sure that it's sandwiched between foils so that it processes nice and light. And Shades EQ is really, it's like a sheer nylon that you're putting over the hair. It's not like a really opaque color. It's really great for toning and just doing little things like this where you just want to change the undertone a little bit, or neutralize the undertone is the proper way of saying it, I guess. All right, I just put like 5 foils on each side with a few pieces of the hair in it, and then I'm just putting as quickly as I can the rest of the 9P just everywhere else, except for the roots because they're so dark it's not going to affect those at all. This is the end result. I'm actually really happy with that bleach, with the lightener I should say. Yes, I did go through with some flash lift just in here a little bit, but I don't think I will have to do that next time because I'll know just around the face if I want it a little bit more dramatic, take thinner pieces and like lay it on a little bit thicker because it did lighten really well. I was just going for a little bit more subtle towards the back and then more dramatic in the front. So the glaze that we used was the 9P, which is not quite out yet, but I'm actually really happy with it. I think it toned it beautifully because it was quite orange before, and now it's just this really pretty pale blonde. So 9P with a little bit of clear and Shades EQ for the toner and the new freehand bleach, and then just a little bit of flash lift up in the front. And I am really happy with it. I hope you guys like it. Why don't you guys comment below and let me know what you guys think of this color. I will do a final spin. We'll put it on the back. And I just curled it with a really big loose wand. All right, you guys, so there you go. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys liked this video and found it useful. And hopefully the Redken bleach comes out soon so you guys can play with it. I think it's really cool stuff. I like the texture. I like how it applied. I think it gave good results. I'm, like I said, going to apply it a little bit thicker next time and see. And I'm excited to play with it some more. So this is one of the techniques that we learned at the Redken Exchange with the triangles, and I really like how it turns out. You can do the triangles bigger if you want it more subtle and a lot smaller if you want it a lot more dramatic. but I really like having that depth that comes into it. I have a lot more videos coming out soon that have other things that I learned at the Redken Exchange, and so I'm so excited to share those with you guys, and I hope you stay tuned and hit the subscribe button so that you can get those updates. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye!